And some of them think that we are the most gorgeous, special things on earth.
Yeah, Venus Xtravaganza was born Thomas Pelagatti. She has ultimately become a celebrated figure within the LGBTQ community. With her name Venus Xtravaganza, it kind of she chose that name symbolizing kind of like a rebirth and the aspirations that she had and the vibrancy that she had.
Venus is a lot younger. I think she was 20, 22, 23. I remember she's very young, and nobody knows who last saw her, who she was with.
Welcome to Coma Case Files, the podcast where Cody and Matt unearth the forgotten crimes against the LGBTQ community. Each episode, they highlight not just the unresolved crimes, but also honor the lives of the individuals behind these cases. Join them now, and let's open up today's Coma Case File.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Coma Case Files. Now today we're going to be talking about Venus Xtravaganza. This was, again, an episode that we had previously recorded, and it is, I think, it may be our most viewed, listened, watched, whatever you want to say, episode. And so now able to re-record this for all of you who may have not gotten a chance to hear the story of Venus Xtravaganza. I think it's a very enlightening story. A lot of people actually may know clips or different things from Venus because she was part of a documentary, Paris is Burning.
Some of them say that we're sick, we're crazy, and some of them think that we are the most gorgeous, special things on earth.
Yeah, Venus Xtravaganza was born Thomas Pelagatti. She has ultimately become a celebrated figure within the LGBTQ community. And as we mentioned in the episode where we were talking about Marsha P. Johnson, we were talking about the city's ballroom scene. She was really at the forefront of that in New York City in the 1980s. And you can, Paris is Burning, where the documentary we talk about, you see that ball culture and the social and cultural implications that came from that. And I think that's a whole interesting and exciting thing to look at and research and learn more about.
Her case is, so there's a lot more video of Venus than Marsha. And Venus is a lot younger. I think she was 20, 22, 23. I remember she's very young. And in her case, I was actually watching Paris is Burning on YouTube right before we filmed this originally. And I really thought about how we were going to do this episode because her family and friends are very much still alive and active. And we haven't talked about how she passed yet, but she became she in a time where that did not happen publicly, this, and let alone this, she was very petite. This is not somebody who's big, strong, and, an imposing figure. It's a very gentle, if to see her, what I saw of her was this very gentle, delicate flower, but flower in the sense of like a rose on fire with thorns. Just so much passion and heat. And, that passion and fire of somebody who's young and healthy and strong and happy, and you see how she is herself and she's honestly really a funny person too.
Well, I think you're spot on when you're talking. Yeah, I think you're spot on though when you're talking about that fire that she had within her, with her name Venus Xtravaganza. It kind of she chose that name symbolizing kind of like a rebirth and the aspirations that she had and the vibrancy that she had. So I think you're totally spot on when you're talking about when you're seeing those clips and those videos of her and that energy that she exudes.
And it's a really I don't know, I recognize that energy. I feel that energy because it's something I think kind of courses through all of us as we kind of get to live our lives out loud and we kind of start shaking off that what we thought we were going to be, what we were expected to be, and realize we don't have to do any of that. We can be exactly who we want to be. The difference is if you're going to do it out loud or not. And like Cody was saying, ballroom culture, she was part of that. And a lot of these cultures, I don't know how to best explain it since, you know, it's outside of New York City, but think of it like a place where it's like your chosen family all gathers, right? Maybe that's a good way to put it, where you feel the absolute safest, where you get to just be you and do your thing, whatever it is. And I recommend everybody watch Paris is Burning. And, you know, much like how we talked about Marcia, grew up from New Jersey. You know, New Jersey's not exactly known for being the friendliest of places.
But she moved to New York because she thought it would be like a really safe place,
right,
to live in, an accepting place.
Right, and Venus also experienced survival sex work, and it may or may not have led to her death, unfortunately. In one instance, you know, we know now, you know, we've heard about the panic defense when someone I thought they were hitting on me, they're gay, and they panic and assault or kill the other person. And it is the fact that that's a defense is just gross. But she had described an attack where she had escaped out of a window when the person realized that she was a trans woman, and did not go well. So so later on, I don't know how far apart these events were, but on Christmas Day of 1988, I believe, her body was found under a hotel bed, and she had been strangled. I believe it had been 3 to 4 days, and she hadn't been heard from. And nobody knows who last saw her, who she was with. So there's two theories right now that are still out there. Was either it was a somebody that had sexual contact with her and attacked her, or it was a robbery gone wrong, or an attack and she just was there, you know, wrong place, wrong time. And again, without evidence or witnesses and anything, we don't know. And she died alone, so as far as we know. So the only person that knows was the person or persons that would have been present in the hotel room with her at the time of her death. And nothing's ever really been brought up. And Venus is so interesting because she did not... Drag queens that identify, for example, as a gay man who does drag, they're not trans. They are a gay man who does drag because the theatrics. Their drag persona, they are a character. Now, there are some drag queens that come out as trans, but their drag queen persona is still a persona. That is not that's just a character they play. Who they are is who they say they are, whether they are a trans woman or a gay man. It doesn't, irrelevant. This is a character. And and some people ride the lines of masculine and feminine, and, you know, may blend in or pass, as we call it, like within the hetero world. Whereas Venus didn't. Venus was very effeminate, and she was herself. And when you hear her talk, you know, I think I just was so enchanted by her when I watched Paris is Burning, just how she interacted with the world and how soft-spoken she was. Just how gentle, like when the camera was kind of one-to-one with her. When she was in front of the crowd talking, commands the crowd. Just, there's so much power there. But when you sat in this kind of one-to-one situation, you know, the camera and the interview style, I thought it was a beautiful way to interview the community. I felt like you got to see this like real soft, like gentle, who knows? I mean, maybe that wasn't her authentic side. It was just for the camera, but it just felt very forthcoming. And it's like this is who this person is. You know, she's just sitting on her bed, chatting, answering the questions, and she's very sweet and demure and lovely, just like an enchanting person. Like, this is somebody I would have wanted to spend time with.
I think that we're lucky in that there is all this footage with the documentary that was going on that were able to see insight into who she was and the life that she
during the
lived.
filming, by the way.
Yeah.
Paris's building is burning, was not completed. She died or was murdered during the filming, and so they're still interviewing people talking about it, and that is traumatic. And luckily, it's New York where they were, and there was support from the community.
Yeah.
When these cases happen in smaller towns, you see a lack of answers, a lack of support. There wasn't even so much as a candlelight vigil, whereas for Venus, at least, much like Marcia, there was a community push for answers or something. And the fact that there's, like Cody said, so much footage of her, there are things to keep her memory alive, and for her family and friends to have something of her beyond a memory.
Yeah. Her drag mother, Angie Xtravaganza, at the time always worried that she would suffer a dark fate. She would always talk about this. And in Paris is Burning, like you mentioned, they're able to talk with people knew her since the documentary wasn't done about all of this. And one of the things that she said is that she always said to Venus, "You're too wild with people in the street. Something's going to happen to you." But that was Venus. She always took a chance. She always went into strangers' cars. She always did what she wanted to get what she wanted. So she was always really worried about her. And then another thing that is interesting surrounding the mystery of her death, that there was, again, like we mentioned, no arrests were ever made in Venus's murder, but
Right.
she wasn't actually the only member of House Xtravaganza whose murder would end up as a cold case. You had Lorena Escalera Extravaganza, who was killed in a fire at her apartment in Brooklyn in 2012. Firefighters determined that blaze was suspicious, but no arrests were made, despite New York police receiving reports that she had been visited by two unnamed men earlier that day. And that kind of goes back to the point, the police were given that two unnamed men had visited Lorena, but then in the case of Venus, there was really kind of a inadequacy of the police department to investigate. And we see this consistently through these LGBTQ cold cases in which the police get criticized for not investigating fully, especially when it involves trans individuals and trans women of color.
It's hard because, their families and friends are still here wondering. It's been, will be 30 something years. So she was very young. So all her family and friends, her friends at the time would all be in their about 50s, I think, by now. So very much present and seeing the news and watching what's happening in the world now. So, putting myself in their position, how frustrating that would be to see how much progress we made, and then to get kind of where we are, it feels like we're being stymied in some ways, a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That is currently the story, what we have, what we know of Venus. There's some more details about her, but I don't really want to discuss, you talked about how she would take chances and stuff. And and that's something that also gets put in. They'll be like, oh, it's like victim blaming. Like, should they have gotten in the car? Well, that didn't give the other person the right to assault them,
I think the biggest takeaway, if you want to look back at her life, is just, I think, go watch Paris is Burning. See that, and then really see that ball culture and what it's developed into, and those houses where they were basically as a sanctuary to come together and be families and providing that safe support. And you kind of continue to see that within drag culture these days, where there's the mother and then they have several drag queens under her, all originating from this ball culture that happened in New York City there in the 80s and early 90s. With all of these people, we hope we're introducing to people maybe that you've not heard of, and then you're able to then go out and learn more about them, because it's always insightful to gather more information. And again, in these cases, like last week we talked about Marsha P. Johnson, and this week Venus, not to just focus on their death, but you could really just go out and learn more about people that are within the community that have really made an impact that Venus did. Well, we'll leave it there. And again, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of the Coma Case Files. See y'all next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Coma Case Files. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery with us, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep investigating and bringing these forgotten stories back to light. For exclusive content and further discussions, join our Patreon community. Make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and follow us on our social media platforms to stay updated on new episodes. Join us next time as we continue to uncover the truths hidden in the shadows. Until then, keep questioning, keep listening, and take care.